never thought there was going to be a coup d'etat that day. Myself, I was working in the counterintelligence army, in charge of the area of the armed forces, and many of us from different political parties, we told the political parties that the coup d'etat was about to happen, and they never believe us. They said, no, the Christian Democrat is not happening, is not participating in the coup d'etat. MIR, MIR, the most leftist, one, my friend that was from the Dirección Política, political directives, and in charge of the same area. I was in a less position in my own party about this task. But to him, they also told him that there was no coup d'etat because the Christian Democrat was not participating in the coup d'etat. And we told them. Later, we put together our experience with our parties. We told them, Arellano Stark is the one from the CIA, the right arm of Presidente Frey. He introduced the CIA is in the Church, ¿cómo se llama? Los archivos desclasificados.
De la Comisión Church.
The declassified documents.
Right. Arellano Stark was one, Bonilla, Palacios, all these other generals were Christian Democrats, and we gave them the list of these people. Right. And they told them, no, you are wrong. There is no coup d'etat because the Christian Democrat Party is not participating. Well, as we all know, the majority of the generals that gave the coup d'etat, made the coup d'etat in Chile were Christian Democrats. And yes, the only one that wasn't was Pinochet, because Pinochet was before supporting Prats. General Prat was kicked out of the army forces and from the government. So in that situation, the coup d'etat fined millions of workers, where all the political parties believing that was not a coup d'etat that day, the coup d'etat was happening. And he had no preparation whatsoever to do anything about that day. So it was terrible, terrible. 10 o'clock, I remember in my Vicuña Maquena, Cordón Vicuña Maquena, everybody was without connection with the political parties and many decided, well, we have to go out of here because we are in danger that the militants were surrounding all the areas. They had cut off the
streets,
the downtown, the street, the avenues, etc. So, well, it was very sad. It was very sad that day because 12 o'clock, in many cordones, they decide to leave in order not to be massacred that day. But, yeah, and 12 o'clock, the bombs start to be launched against the Palace of Government. And we all know what happened. Well, the Air Force took a lot of time to obey the order because most of the pilots they didn't want to do that, and it's very well known now that it was one pilot of the American Air Forces that was the one that took the plane that did the bombardment in the building of the government in Chile, La Moneda. Well, a big chaos that day, and not to mention what happened after that. The coming day was to kick out of the factories, to close the factories, to kick out the workers, to to imprison the workers. The 90% of the workers in Chile that were killed, the 90% of the people was killed in Chile, according to international workers organization, OIT, said that the 90% belonged to the workers that were participating in the general strikes in the mid-60s in Chile, and that participate in industrial belt or workers' council. The repression was absolutely direct to the workers. Our nurses that work in the hospitals, in many hospitals, main hospitals in Santiago, saw the lorries full up with dead bodies of workers that they were taken there to be incinerated. Many of these nurses managed to take the ID card that these dead workers had in their pockets in order to later on to let their families to have it, that to know that they were killed, they were incinerated, and all that. It was horror all over the country. Everywhere they were hunting, especially the working class. So that's what my first impression about the coup d'etat is.
And the government had brought Pinochet into the government, hoping that he would protect the government. But the United States government and U.S. military and the AFL-CIO actually had spent a lot of time planning this.
Sure.
Maybe, I mean, you talk, there were strikes, and maybe you can, Lisa, you can talk about some of these strikes that took place prior to the coup that were financed by the AFL-CIO through the CIA, and the effect that they did in trying to bring down the government in Chile.
Well, like Ernesto had mentioned before, and Ernesto was part of those strikes himself. So, I mean, he was part of, not the strikes, but he was part of the struggle to, in the industrial workers' councils, to counteract these shortages and these fake shortages, and these counteract the right-wing advance. He was there. I was only 11 years old when the coup happened, so I wouldn't be able to say firsthand exactly what happened. But a lot of things we found out later through the Church Commission and through the researchers and through Chilean exiles such as Ernesto and their testimonies basically confirmed that the truck owners, for example, conducted a strike in 1971 where they paid through AIFLD money, the AFL-CIO's entity, $50 a day in 1970s dollar for them to strike against the Allende government. That's one of the more notorious examples. But I'm sure Ernesto has many more examples of these corporate and management lockouts that they would do at these different companies, or else they would produce products. They would stop the line of production of products that were more affordable for people, and they would bring in the line of production of more expensive items to create the shortages and to create discontent among the population who couldn't afford those products. And so Ernesto can talk about that those were responses that the workers had during the Popular Unity government to be able to defend the government and to defend the people, the workers. Ernesto, siga adelante.
And so these worker councils that you were part of, Ernesto, why don't you talk about what they were? How were they organized, and what they did to protect the working class?
Yes. In the middle of the 60s in Chile, the Christian Democrat brought a lot of new industries with more high technology. And there, this new injection of young workers came into the branch of the working class. And then they started with wildcat strikes those days. Yeah. That is one previous thing. And during the campaign of the election campaign of the Popular Unity, they were created the Comités Sindicales de la Unidad Popular, trade union committees of the Popular Unity within the factories. That was a very good work that we did. And as you know, we won the elections with a lot of problems. But at the next day that Allende took power, I remember that in the committee of the province, the large committee, came all these trade unionists from the Comités Sindicales, trade unionists de la Unidad Popular, to tell us that they were occupying the factories. We said, what? Why? Because it's what Lisa was saying, they are stopping the line of production that are popular and cheaper for the other ones expensive, that is stopping the machinery, they are taking machinery towards Argentina, etc. So we took the factory. Oh, that's so. And we check it, and it was absolutely true in all those places. And then
I'm sorry, but I have this. This is the carnet of Ernesto are talking about. This is the real one.
The ID, yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. And then we took it up to the political parties, and they told us, well done. And now you go and tell the bosses, the owners, that if they carry on doing these things, we are going to take all the industries towards the state-owned industry or social economy area, as we call it. So the first year, we didn't have any problem whatsoever with the economy in Chile. It's the best one. But then the contradiction within the government, the Social Democrat part made pressure that these committees, the Popular Unidad Sindical, union, they should stop. And they did it. And then the black market started to happen. And what was the main fight in Chile is that the program of the Popular Unity, Unidad Popular, was to take into the social area 253 monopolic industries in Chile to the social area. Something which the Christian Democrats from the day one start to fight back. And they imposed over Allende el Estatuto de Garantías Democráticas. I don't know if you understand that.
The statute of democratic guarantees or democratic rights, something like that.
And then those 253 industries were reduced to 91, right? Well, and then after they finished with the Comité de Unidad Popular Sindicales, within the industries, the black market started to flourish everywhere. The boycott and the one that Nixon predicted and wanted from the very beginning, we have to squeeze the Chilean economy, and we have to make it to scream, start to happen. From then, they were trying to do it, but the international boycott to Chile was already done by the United States, England, and all those imperialist countries. We didn't have no spare parts. We didn't have machinery to bring to Chile, etc. The lot, as you know, it happened in Venezuela. Well, and then is when the Workers' Council appear again. Then, when they see that they are producing a lot of goods, and when they go out to buy it, they have to pay 10, 20 times more. They say, no, that cannot be. And then they start to occupy the industries. And when this general strike that Lisa was mentioning, the transport, etc. My father was a trade unionist in the transport. He was offered by the Christian Democrat union leaders with a big briefcase full of dollars in order not to work those days. And those were financed also by the AFL-CIO, etc. See, the money was
flowing. So your father was offered a bribe.
Exactly.
Offered a bribe.
Not only my father. Not only my father. All the other unionists that wanted to work. Well, they create El Mopare, that was transport that was working during that period. That they were a minority because they were no owner of the trucks. And the owner of the trucks, they gathered together all the trucks in big areas of land altogether. Many times we have to steal those trucks from them. We have to make some funny action in one side, and they run over there, and we took some lorries to put it to work, etc. And well, but it was useless because ellos tiraban Miguelitos. Lisa?
Miguelitos are like jacks, but they're like very sharp nails that are intertwined that stop cars and tear into the tires. They're like jacks that are nails.
And bombs, everything against the tank. Anyway, but now all the industries were in the hand of the working class. They occupy them, and they make them to produce like never ever before. I was working in the Instituto de Estadística y Censo, Institute of Statistics and Census.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Sí.
That month, at the end, when I went back to work, and I look at the statistics, yeah, of production of the industry, it was up, despite all the chaos that it was on the street and everywhere. And when I look at productivity, it was even higher. I thought, no, productivity, I don't think we are going to have much productivity with the chaos that we had, but it was also higher than ever before. But well, and the Workers' Council or Cordones Industriales start to take not only the production in their hands, but also the distribution. Also, they start to make alliance with the town, with the city, with the population, with la población, yeah, and with the peasants. Very important. If the peasants shouldn't have work, if they would have stopped those bans, we were finished. Nobody talk about the peasants very much, but they also join us.
Muéstraselo.
No, you can see.
A ver, muelo más para atrás. Más para atrás.
Yeah.
¿El pato Donald está ahí? ¿Es el pato Donald?
No. No, it's very big.
Okay.
But look at this. That I don't know if you can see, but
No se ve mucho, perdona, disculpe. No
Ya
se
se
ve
ve
casi.
mejor, vea. I'm sorry, but I'm going to voice
2 years of challenge, it's called. 2 years of challenges, yeah.
and I go to my own museum of the
Museo
this one is
fantástico.
very good
tiene.
here. Mira, dice Union of Miguelitos Factories. This is a right wing here, yeah, in the blog. Sociedad de Artesanos del Sabotage, yeah. Trabajadores del Mercado Negro, Workers of the Black Market. Yeah, okay.
Now,
The human is very important. Yeah. This, your son.
Uncle Sam for you.
Yeah.
Qué bueno que está ese, está buenísimo.
Oye, this
Now
guy
this-
has such a good
Now the industrial
But
work,
anyway,
I got a lot.
they will send us the pictures. Take pictures of all those and send
Toma
us.
las fotos, sí, para que se pueda
sí,
presentar.
we can send it to you, yes. Well, anyway, and so the industrial, la cordones industriales make all these large alliances all over the country. Well, we won the battle. We came back to work. Everything was calmed down. They couldn't push the militaries to give a coup d'etat. Yeah.
These are the. Esta es una portada de un periódico de un paro que hizo la CUT. Así
This is-
marchaban los trabajadores en esos años.
That's
sé si
how
se
the
alcanza a ver
workers
bien.
would march during those times during one of the marches of the CUT.
I see.
Yeah, pero eso de qué fecha es?
Esto es de antes del 11, un poquito antes del tanquetón.
Yeah.
Ah, yeah.
Okay.
The workers all were marching for asking for peace and no coup d'etat and all that.
Tengo aquí el del golpe.
Sí, sí. Well,
Well,
so I don't know if you have more questions. And the industrial belt of the industrial.
well, the
They
industrial
produce
workers.
spare parts that were forbidden to this. They start to create so many things. Yeah, like spare parts that we didn't have.
And the United States government had, and capitalists in the United States wanted to control copper in Chile, wanted to
Yeah.
control the mines. What kind of role did American corporations play in Chile?
Well, from the very beginning, they tried to arrange strikes in the copper mines, which they failed, of course. And the main reason for the coup d'etat in Chile is because we took the copper out of them, of course. And
So,
we
so
nationalized.
the copper mines were nationalized
Yes,
by the government of Chile, which
by
must
the
have,
government.
must have infuriated Anaconda and U.S. corporations who own those mines, that they believe.
Many of them.
Acuérdate de
También los sector tecnológico de telecomunicaciones también, ¿no? ITT,
ITT, etc.
the telecommunications industry would
And the
ITT.
copper was very crucial because, well, and in the parliament, the votation
The votes.
was only one abstention. Abstention? ¿Cómo es? Yeah,
Abstention.
only one. Even the right wing had to vote in favor of copper nationalization in Chile because the pressure was so huge of the people of Chile that they had to. Only one was abstention in the parliament. So, well, and they were financing, of course, to make the coup d'etat in Chile. That's for sure, because Kissinger collect money for all the big companies that were out of Chile and kick out of Chile and from the American elite, Rockefeller, etc., etc. So they have a lot of money put in Chile, especially to recover the copper companies, which, incredibly or not, they only recover 12% with Pinochet. It's not because Pinochet didn't want to give them back the copper industry. It's because within the military themselves, there was a current that said, no, this is a strategic area, and we're not going to give it up. And they pressed Pinochet. That's why Pinochet has changed lately. Yeah, it's because he could never go back, give back the copper to the Americans. But sí la concertación. With Pinochet, the private sector of the mining industry was in international or private sector, but with concertación, they had the 72% of the copper minings. United States, or again, Canada, Australia. But anyway, there are global companies that also they are mixed and all that. So very interesting also to think that what happened with the popular unity is the continuation and the improvement of neoliberal system in Chile. I can give you many more examples. Education, that in Chile always was free at university level, etc. They complete the regulation and privatization of the education in Chile with concertación. With the Lagos, el CAE, they made the students to get a big loan from the state that was the guarantor to the banks, and then with that they went to the bank and they were in debt up until today, and it's still the same thing. We can give you many others. Health also privatized.
So you used to have health care for all in Chile when you had national health care. Did you have public health care in Chile?
Of course. Allende in 38, well, that was Minister of Health. He was the one who created
FONASA?
Medicina Preventiva. No, preventive, the National Health Service, Chilean.
FONASA.
No, FONASA now is with the concertación.
Yeah.
Sino que empezó con la medicina preventiva primero allá.
La medicina preventiva in 1938. Allende, Minister of Health, of Pedro Aguirre Cerda. From then we had this
sort of Gobierno Popular.
The popular government of Pedro Aguirre Cerda.
So in 1938, you had nationalized health care in Chile.
Well, it was more like preventive health. Yeah, preventive health care. Yeah.
And under the Allende government, what happened to health care?
Y bajo la...
Of course, he improved it. Absolutely.
He's a doctor.
And he was the one who made the law of preventive medicine. So that was his due of the crown.
And what was the law of preventive medicine? What was that law?
Pardon?
¿Qué era la ley esa ley de medicina preventiva? ¿Qué es lo que cubría? ¿Cómo era que ayudaba?
Yes. That the doctor called you, not you go to the doctor. The doctor had to call you, yeah, to make appointment to check you that you are in good health, right?
And they would go to your house. ¿Iban a tu casa?
They were local doctors.
Local doctors, yeah.
And you go to them. It's like very similar to the British, that they have this local
national healthcare system, yeah.
And like family doctors that are in the commune and in the local area. We copy very much from the English, British. And in 38, where it wasn't real in England yet. Yes, and they have liter of milk for all the children. A lot of ¿cómo se? Lo dije bien, ¿no? Medio litro de leche.
Half a liter, yeah.
Half a liter of milk. He was very concerned about the health of the Chilean people. And now it's
so when the coup took place in Chile, you're saying that they restructured the economy and they privatized the healthcare, they privatized the education, they privatized the pension plans, the
housing also.
So they privatized the housing.
The housing.
They turned over to private capitalists.
Yes, exactly. Because now, before the AFL-2, that was the state built very good. AFL-2, it was a law for construction of housing, very good one. That now these days have a very high prices because as they were so well built with patio, with many rooms for the people.
So you're saying that the working class housing, the housing for the people, that was built by Allende, by the workers of Chile under that government, was very good housing, and now it's been privatized and it cost a lot of money. Workers can't afford the same houses now.
In fact, there's also a lot of those houses withstood the earthquake of 2010, the 9.0 earthquake of 2010, because they were so well built. And also, I think he built, él construyó como 100,000 casas en esos 3 años, como 100,000 fueron, o más.
Yeah, no, 100,000.
In those 3 years,
200,000, but he couldn't finish.
Yeah, he was planning on constructing 200,000, but he built at least 100,000 homes in 3 years.
And the housing situation in the United States today, there are thousands and thousands of homeless people living in tents in San Francisco and New York and Los Angeles, all over the country, homeless people in tents.
Like in Chile today. Yeah.
The other thing about the housing it's interesting to look at is that in 2010, the earthquake that happened, a 9.0 earthquake, if it had not been for a law that Allende passed in 1972 in terms of the regulation, building regulations for quality building regulations, if it had not been for that law, there would be, it's calculated that there would have been many, 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 many more deaths as a result of the 2010 earthquake. It was that law from 1972 that Allende placed that saved people's lives in 2010.
And the issue of what the United States and the military dictatorship did to the industrial zones where these factories were. What happened to these factories? They arrested thousands of trade unions. They killed them. They put them in the stadium. They terrorized the unions. What happened to these industrial zones after the coup and the policy of neoliberalism in Chile?
Well, after kill the leaders of the trade unionists. It doesn't matter if you are leftist or whatever or not. They start to close a lot of factories. But on the other hand, there were about 300 and something, maybe more very good industries that they intervene, but and make them to devalue the prices, and they bought it for themselves. Cap, you name it, the steel company, the petroleum company, the electric company.
The military
now are there.
The
they
military.
say that the state is bad, etc., etc., and they never had built any factory in Chile, and they started this process of this industrialization of Chile.
But they also create, the military became a class unto themselves because they became the majority shareholders of these key industries. So they became a military and economic caste unto themselves.
So they became
Lisa, remember, they got the 10% of the copper incomes.
Well, yeah, not only, it's not even the income, it's the actual revenue. It's not even the income, because income usually is after expenses. It's the revenue coming in. They get they have control over 1/3 of the Corfo, ¿no? De la cooperación de fomento de Codelco, no el Corfo, de Codelco, 1/3 of it, right? It's still state. So 1/3 of the copper in Chile still is state owned, and that's the revenue that comes from that. That's not even, we're not even talking about the expenses, but we're talking about the revenue is used to pay for the housing for the military, police, and like all the apparatus of the state of the armed forces of the state. The housing, they can get housing loans. They get fantastic pensions. They get special health care. And access to the best healthcare.
Their own hospitals.
They have their own hospitals. They created their own special caste, and they got it from the nationalization of the copper, actually, of the 1/3 that still belongs to the state.
And this policy of the United States of supporting a coup is not new. There have been many coups in Latin America. Brazil, there was a U.S.-supported coup. Argentina, there was a U.S.-supported coup. Guatemala, El Salvador. I mean, one country. And just recently, the last couple of years, there was a coup in Bolivia, supported by the United States to get the lithium. There was a coup in Peru. And so, do you think that this policy of the AFL-CIO and the U.S. government to organize and bring about coups in Latin America, it seems to have continued 50 years on. Nothing has changed. in Latin America as far as U.S. intervention of trying to overthrow governments that may nationalize some of the wealth or threaten American control or European multinational control of the wealth of Chile and other countries.
Yes, but there is some difference now. When they really need to make a coup d'etat, they don't have any other solution, like in Peru, because in Peru the presidents were not lasting more than 2 years. Lately, there was a big crisis and the social movement on the street. And the problem is that we don't have a popular organization, political ones that could lead this upheaval, that are massive in Peru. But the other thing that they're doing now, most of the time, well, in Chile at least they do it, is buying the politicians. It's cheaper to buy politicians that give the coup d'etat, yeah, than that make their image so bad, yeah, and they damage so much their image and make people more annoyed in the countries, and because Venezuela, they haven't been able to establish the coup d'etat there, right? And not because they don't want, they could, but they, Ecuador, they move their supporters. In Bolivia, they already did a coup, but Evo was able to come back, ¿verdad? And also it's there. Brazil, Lula is back, yeah. Colombia, the narco state of Latin America, the most corrupted, the more criminal. They kill 10 times more than in Chile or anywhere else in Latin America. And you have this incredible guy, Petro, that was a guerrilla man for 30 years, and who is saying today that when Allende was suffering the coup d'etat in Chile, he went up to the hills. I mean to say he went to get the guerrilla warfare. But after 30 years, he realized that it was most costly than what happened in Chile. And the election road is as important as the other. But of course, you have to take into consideration always the military defense of your government. And for sure, there must be sectors in the Colombian army forces that are supporting this. What happened to us? We have more than 50% of the army forces with us, according to Joan Garcés, the advisor of Allende in the government, this Spanish guy. When in his book about the Chilean government, go to the army forces chapter and the popular unity, he said, we have such and such a forces. So it's a combination. You can convene. Hola, ¿qué tal? You have convened legal ways with, of course, if you have to use the arms when it's absolutely necessary, you can have it too. But in Chile, we have it too. El tanquetazo, Lisa, you know, before there
was a practice run. They did a practice run in agosto fue?
No,
June of 73.
2 months before the final coup d'etat that was done by the Christian Democrat, this attempt was done by the right wing.
It was a practice run of the coup.
Sector of the military. And Pratt defeated them completely, and arrest them and kick them out of the army force. And he proposed to the government then to get rid of the 12% of Christian Democrat generals that were there. They were the only ones who were, and they were directly working with the CIA, that we know now by the archivos desclasificados. And they didn't take into consideration the Pratt's proposal. So it was not by a lack of support of the militants that we lost, but because of the bad decision that our government did in that part. But
Yeah.
doesn't justify the criminality, the brutality of the coup d'etat. That's something else.
En fact, ¿verdad que sí que tú me mandaste una carta, me mostraste una carta que escribieron los compañeros de los cordones industriales Allende el 3 de septiembre, ¿verdad?
Speak in English.
I'm sorry. He sent me a letter that the
5 of September.
On the 5th, it was dated the 5th of September 1973, a letter that the Workers' Council sent to Allende, and where they're talking about how disappointed they are and how alarmed they are about the Allende's decisions regarding the latest developments. They also mentioned that even with all the shortages and all the problems and everything like that, the people of Chile in March 1973 gave him more votes. He won more votes. The Popular Unity government got up to 43% of the votes. And they denounced the fact that at that time, it says the right wing has created such a big terrorist apparatus that is so powerful and so well organized that we know for sure that it must be directed by the CIA. They kill workers, they blow up oil lines, buses, and railway stations. They create lights out, how do you say, in 2 or 3 different provinces. Blackouts in 2 or 3 different provinces. Yes. They attack our leaders and the locales of parties. And are these people, have they been brought to justice? No, they haven't.
Apprehended.
Apprehended.
So they were getting away with.
They were getting away with all this. The fascists were getting away with this shit. Okay, we know the names of them. Los Pablos Rodriguez, Benjamin Mata. They have actively said openly that they are that they participated in this tanquetazo, in this June uprising of the military. They have. The transport, the truck drivers paralyzed the entire country, leaving workers without any kind of heating or food or any kind of medicine. Instead, what was going on was the workers themselves were being attacked by police. So in Frei and Jarpa and that were financed by the ITT, here they name it, they call openly for sedition against the government. So that's what the fascists were up to leading up to the coup. And the Workers' Council sent a letter to Allende about this.
And the ITT, International Telephone and Telegraph, was connected to the CWA. Byrne, the president of the CWA. How was the CWA involved in the coup in Chile at that time?
¿Tú sabes cómo estaba involucrado el Communication Workers of America o por lo menos los trabajadores de las telecomunicaciones? ¿O no estabas tú metido en ese ámbito?
No. I know that ITT was from the very beginning supporting with money, a lot of things, but that's all what I know from that area.
And that raises the issue of the role of the AFL-CIO and the CIA in Chile, because the books, all 50 years ago, the documents, the communication between the Chile generals and the United States government and the AFL-CIO, all that information still, a lot of it is buried and people don't know about it 50 years later. And there is going to be a conference education conference on September the 10th in Washington, D.C. at the Martin Luther King Library and a rally at the AFL-CIO on September the 11th, the day of the coup. And what do Chilean trade unions and workers want to see today on the 50th anniversary? To get justice, to get compensation? What do workers in Chile, what do they want to see as far as addressing the really crimes, labor crimes that took place in Chile 50 years ago and apparently are still going on because of the restructuring of the Chile economy and the neoliberal policies in Chile.
Yo voy a hablar sobre lo que quiere la gente en cuanto a reparación y te voy a dejar a ti con la cuestión del AFL-CIO. ¿Ya? Okay, I'm going to take one point that which is what the people want today of reparation. We want justice, the truth, reparation, and that it will never happen again. And in reparation, it's one of the worst reparations in human rights that ever have been done after the massacre that the people in Chile have suffered. In Argentina was, I don't know, 10 times or better than in Chile. In Chile, you still have the torture, the people that torture, walking free on the street. We created el Comité contra la Tortura, el Comité Ético contra la Tortura. Hicimos un gran trabajo. We made a very good work. We managed that Lagos create this commission, Vales, in order to inquire about what happened with torture, because a lot of things were touched, but torture, they were not touched in that area. So we managed, with Helmut Friends, a Lutheran bishop from Germany, to press Lagos to open this investigation, yeah, which we did. And the Valles Commission, and my committee, the Comité Ético contra la Tortura, managed to mobilize more than 50,000 people that were tortured, which is very difficult, Steve. Once you have been tortured, you don't want to talk about that anymore. I mean, it's a trauma, very powerful one. It never goes away. But we managed that more than 50,000 people came to this commission to declare, to make the statement about that when they were tortured and who did it. The conclusion of this commission was excellent. He was a priest who had this commission about torture and political imprisonment. Well, it gives me a lot of anger. And Lagos created a law, 2 laws, 50 years of secrets of the conclusions of this investigation that was very good by this commission, and not to pass over to the justice to those who were being identified as the one who made the torture. For us was, I mean, until, well, today I know that the new Corte Suprema finished with this self-amnesty that they create for them and the secrecy and all that. So maybe I'm going to be still alive to carry on with all my other friends in human rights in Chile, to carry on with this, you know, and justice, very powerful. So, of course, the Chileans that have been suffering all these things, kicked out of their work, blacklisted, torture, exile, etc., they want justice. Of course they want. We have thousands of people that is missing still, yeah? And there's no way to get the names of these, that family, you know, they suffer every day about their loved ones. So it's a big debt that they have with the Chilean people, and we don't lose faith to manage to do it in some time or in another. So that's about. I mean, there are Chilean women that every week march around the Justice of Court in Chile building, asking for the missing ones. Every week. And we go there, we accompany them, and they are still there. And there is no justice in Chile in reparation of human rights. And many other things I could tell you about.
Ernesto,
yeah.
¿Tú dijiste que había alguien al lado tuyo? ¿Es Poncho el que va a hablar sobre la ofensiva?
Poncho is going,
Okay.
going to talk about the AFL-CIO.
AFL-CIO, qué bueno,
Claro.
ok.
Bueno, yo me voy a poner por aquí.
Ya.
Les voy a pedir, no, pero ahí, vaya.
Está perfecto ya.
Bueno, te voy a pedir, compañera, si me puedes traducir porque mi inglés es pésimo, ¿no?
Está bien, no te preocupes.
Pero bueno, las investigaciones que he podido realizar de las fuentes primarias, como ustedes estaban viendo aquí hace un rato, entonces, por ejemplo, aquí tengo el famoso periódico del 13 de septiembre del año 73, que es el de
Controla el país, sí. Ujú.
Entonces, bueno, desde aquellos tiempos hasta hoy día, yo me he dedicado a realizar el estudio sobre el rol de AFL-CIO en Chile. Y los primeros rastros que se encuentran de AFL-CIO en Chile son alrededor del año 1952, cuando en Chile se estaba desarrollando una unidad sindical organizada, ¿no es cierto?, dirigida por Clotario Blest, y gracias a esa unidad sindical nace la primera gran organización unitaria de los trabajadores chilenos, que es la CUT, que va más allá de los trabajadores de un partido político de izquierda, Partido Comunista, Partido Socialista, sino que esta vez va a englobar a todos los trabajadores por igual, sin diferencia de pensamiento político, de credos religiosos.
Okay, so I've been investigating from the primary sources since, like you could see from this cover of this newspaper from El Mercurio from the 13th of September of 1973. I've been studying the role of the AFL-CIO, and the first clues that I had been able to find was started more or less in 1952. At that particular time, this worker unity was formed. This workers organization was created by Clotario Blest, which was the CUT, the original CUT, which included all the workers. He wanted to include all the workers. Didn't matter what political parties they belonged to or what religious groups they belonged to. It was basically a workers' party, a workers' union, CUT. Go ahead, continúa.
Entonces, desde ese momento hasta la elección del año 1964, o sea, estamos hablando de 12 años ininterrumpidos, la AFL-CIO trabajó intensamente para formar diversos cuadros sindicales, ¿no es cierto?, con dirección adecuada, qué sé yo, formarlos en Estados Unidos para que esos sindicatos, ¿no es cierto?, fueran sindicatos que se agruparan bajo la lógica de la AFL-CIO y no lucharan por una revolución social, sino que lucharan por algo menos que un reajuste salarial.
So during that period of time, from 1952 to 1964, the AFL-CIO was involved in training or bringing union leaders to the United States to give them trainings and to try to teach them the AFL-CIO way. In other words, not to join the forces of workers towards social change, social revolution, but rather just to fight for salaries adjustments and things like that.
Claro. Entonces, a medida que desde el año 1952, en que la región chilena estaba completamente sumergida en la Guerra Fría, con campos de concentración anticomunista, detención y relegación de personas que no solo tenían una militancia de izquierda, sino que hacían defensa de derechos sindicales, todos ellos terminaron en el campo de concentración de Pisagua, ¿no es cierto? Y es luego de que ese campo de concentración es cerrado, que, digámoslo así, empieza la historia contemporánea, cuya cúspide, podríamos decir, está en la Unidad Popular y el 11 de septiembre, que es la derrota de...
So during that period of time from 1952, Chile was submerged in the Cold War, where the government created in 1952 created these concentration camps, or they would relegate people who were fighters and who fought for the rights and human rights and trade union rights and political rights, and they were relegated to islands Perdón, en la Isla Dawson lo mandaron a Pisagua o a Pisagua.
No, a Pisagua. En la Isla Dawson, eso del 73 para adelante.
Okay. So they were sent to a place called Pisagua, and so they were relegated in the middle of the Cold War. And that, from there on, after that camp was closed down, then we reached the part of the Popular Unity government. Pero Ya, perdón.
Entonces se presenta una división dentro del movimiento sindical, una que se acerca a una posición más revolucionaria, que es la que tiene Clotario Blest, y otra que es cercana a la AFL-CIO y que busca frenar el movimiento revolucionario y transformarlo en un movimiento menor a algo reivindicativo. Y
So
las primeras...
there's a division that happens between in the union. There was groups that presented their positions in more revolutionary positions than those that Clotario Blest had himself. And then there was this other sector, which was the more right-wing sector, which was the AFL-CIO, which wanted to prevent any kind of social movements from happening.
Finalmente, llegando a la década de los años 60, el dinero que pasaba por la AFL-CIO empezó a pasar por la Alemania occidental, por la RFA, y empezaría a llegar por una cuenta especial de un diputado demócrata cristiano alemán, ¿no es cierto? Empezaría a llegar al Partido Demócrata Cristiano. Y sobre eso están todos los informes de la Comisión Church, que habla sobre eso en su primer apartado, ¿no es cierto?, que es la interferencia en la economía chilena, ¿no es cierto?, la política chilena, entre 1958 y 1964.
So in the 1960s, the money that was being sent from the AFL-CIO, instead of being sent directly, they passed through the hands of West Germany, in particular through an account that was sent to congressman, a Chilean German congressman who belonged to the Christian Democratic Party and was passed down, basically was passed through the Christian Democrats. It's all that has been documented by the Church Commission during the first part of that report, which talks about interference in the politics of Chile from 1958 del 58 hasta el 64.
Claro, porque
From
cubre
1964.
la elección de Eduardo Frei, quien aparece con $8 millones depositados directamente por la CIA.
And so the elections of Eduardo Frei, which was Christian Democrat during that particular time, there's $8 million that was deposited to his account by the CIA.
Entonces, esta política desarrollada por la AFL-CIO desde los años 50 y 60 tiene su mayor expresión en la derrota que sufre el movimiento revolucionario, digámoslo así, que ya sale de los sindicatos y entra a un movimiento insurgente urbano, que es lo que hace o desarrolla el movimiento de izquierda revolucionaria, el MIR, que también fue fundado por Clotario Blest.
Entonces, perdón, entre los años 50 y 60, ¿me puedes repetir eso de nuevo?
Claro, entre los años 50 y 60 se desarrolla este sindicalismo planteado por la AFL-CIO, que no es un sindicalismo confrontacional, sino que es un sindicalismo de pacto social.
Sí, sí, entiendo, pero es el pacto social, ya. Entonces, de ahí se salió, dijiste que algo se salió, cuenta.
Claro, ¿por qué? Porque en los años 60, al dividirse el movimiento, hay una parte que se va con la AFL-CIO y otra parte que se va con la vía insurgente. Y eso se va con el movimiento de izquierda revolucionario, con el MIR, que sale de los sindicatos y se va a la calle en otra forma de lucha, digamos. En cambio, los sindicatos de la AFL-CIO hasta el último momento siempre recibieron dinero desde Estados Unidos, hasta septiembre, ¿no es cierto? Y el track 1, track 2 de Kissinger con Nixon.
Ok, lo que yo no entendí, ¿por qué decías que el MIR se había ido del movimiento sindical? Porque lo que tengo entendido, el MIR nunca se fue del movimiento sindical, pero se salió de la burocracia sindical. ¿Eso es lo que quiere decir de la estructura del CUT, de la CUT?
Claro, claro. Incluso el MIR después postuló a la presidencia de la CUT y no lo resultó, que fue el año 72, se tiró el Pascal Allende.
Ah, yeah, okay. Well, what happened between the 50s and 60s, there was a division that happened within the movement, the union movement, where the AFL-CIO was the one that was influencing through the money that was being sent towards a more of a social pact kind of union. and the left, the more insurrectionalist left that was personified in the movement of the revolutionary left, they ended up leaving the union fight within the unions, and they went more towards the other sectors of the social sectors, que fueron a los otros sectores sociales como las
Claro, fueron a la
universidades,
calle, salieron de los sindicatos, se fueron como a la lucha callejera,
a la
al
calle,
conflicto callejero.
pero también en las universidades, pero siempre también tuvieron la lucha con los campesinos también, ¿no? Todavía mantenían la lucha con los
Eso pasa
campesinos.
después del triunfo de Allende, porque hasta
okay.
el año 70 el MIR era una banda parecida a los Tupamaros.
Okay, so basically the MIR had decided to go more towards the streets, and so they took more of an insurrectionist role. And however, in 1972, they also tried to gain more traction inside the CUT with one of their leaders running for the presidency of the CUT in 1972, but they didn't win.
Claro. Finalmente, el proceso se mantiene de esa forma durante la Unidad Popular. Todos los sindicatos que habían sido contactados desde el año 50 hasta el 70 por parte de la AFL-CIO son los sindicatos que se pasan contra el gobierno de Allende en bloque.
So what happened during the Popular Unity government is that the unions had received the training and the money and all that kind of stuff from, or the union leaders that had received the training and the money from the AFL-CIO from 1950 until 1970, they immediately went and took an opposing position against Allende, almost as if in a block.
Claro, y eso incluyó, por ejemplo, a los colegios médicos, los colegios de profesionales, los camioneros, todos los que habían sido entrenados y culturizados, digámoslo así, en esta metodología de dominación por la AFL-CIO en los años 50 y 70, son los que después, durante el gobierno de la Unidad Popular, son la punta de lanza de la estrategia planteada por Nixon contra el gobierno democráticamente electo del presidente Salvador Allende.
So, for example, the medical professionals, most of the medical trade unions of professionals, as well as the truck drivers and those who had been acculturated to the AFL-CIO method of dominance and served as the main attack by the Nixon administration against the Allende government.
Claro. Entonces, a medida que se va profundizando el proceso político de la Unidad Popular, con la recuperación de la ITT, que era un monopolio telefónico, con la recuperación de las riquezas que estaban en propiedad de Anaconda, las mineras, ¿no es cierto? Todos estos grandes monopolios instalados por Estados Unidos y que habían logrado una gran dependencia de Chile, perdón que aquí estaban llamando, habían logrado una gran dependencia económica de Chile hacia Estados Unidos. Todas esas organizaciones, todas esas instituciones logran romper el poder inicial que tenían los sindicatos de izquierda y logran instalar un lockout patronal en noviembre de 1972. Ese es el gran aporte de la AFL-CIO contra el gobierno de Salvador Allende.
¿Logran instalar qué? ¿Un local qué?
Logran hacer un lockout patronal, o sea, logran hacer
un
paro patronal.
Yeah.
Claro.
Okay. So basically the ITT and the Anaconda, and who had were one of the main corporations who had a very strong monopoly that was from the United States, and which had created a high level of dependence of Chile of the United States. They were able to break or to put a chasm in the workers' council's power by instituting they were able to put a chasm in against the government of Allende, rather, and were the main forces behind these management and corporate lockouts of these industries.
Claro, y directamente financiados por Estados Unidos, el Comité 40 y todos los papeles que desclasificó la Comisión Church han mostrado que se gastaron, el gobierno de Nixon gastó alrededor de $30 millones de la época, solamente en el caso chileno.
So there's been documents from the Church Commission and all those declassified documents like the Committee of 40 that Nixon spent during that period of time about $30 million of those of 1970s dollars at that time. Just on Chile.
La intromisión del gobierno norteamericano llegó incluso a financiar a todos los partidos de oposición en forma monetaria directa, que fue la elección de marzo de 1973, ¿no es cierto? Donde la Unidad Popular pasó del 36,6% al 43,6%, a pesar de que tuvo toda la propaganda y por lo que me recuerdo eran $10 millones, solamente ahí, ¿no es cierto?, para que la Unidad Popular pasara del 36% al 30%, lo cual permitía una acusación constitucional. ¿Tú recuerdas?
Esa última parte no te caché bien, but the intervention is also with the monies that were sent to these different political opposition political parties that were spent, like more than $10 million were spent on the elections of March of 1973, which was the municipal, eran elecciones municipales, la del marzo.
Diputados y senadores.
Oh, I'm sorry, the congressional elections of 1973, which interestingly, the Popular Unity government went from having 35.6% of the vote from when they first took power to after these elections, they got 43.6% of the vote. So they increased their votes despite the millions and millions of dollars that the U.S. put into that. But even so, they, aún así el Congreso logró sacar el 30%, dices tú, para hacerle una acusación.
La Unidad Popular pasó del 36% al 43%. Ha sido el único gobierno en la historia de Chile que ha incrementado su votación después de ser electo.
Yeah, it's the only government in Chile that was able to increase its electoral advantage while in government and after having been elected, actually.
Or 3%.
The only one.
Okay.
Y bueno, después de eso, la estrategia, al no resultar este golpe blanco, este golpe político, la estrategia que utiliza el gobierno de Nixon y fundamentalmente Henry Kissinger, que era quien desarrolló esta estrategia como el general de Nixon, digámoslo así, en el terreno, fue muy simple. ¿Por qué? Porque tenía controlado a todos los sindicatos patronales. Por otro lado, tenía una gran infiltración dentro de diversos estamentos del ejército, de la marina, de las Fuerzas Armadas, ¿no es cierto? Y aparte de eso, tenía un control sobre los diversos medios de comunicación que informaban hacia afuera sobre Chile. Entonces, lo que se da desde el 21 de mayo de 1973 hasta un día como hoy, ¿no es cierto?, 23 de agosto de 1973, se da una saturación. El sistema capitalista satura todo, cosa que desde donde salga la chispa se provoca el levantamiento militar. Sale la excusa militar.
¿Qué saturación estás hablando tú?
De que se saturó a la sociedad chilena. Por un lado se saturó con los sindicatos americanos, por otro lado se tomó, se cortó.
Se saturó en términos de plata que se estaba poniendo para oponerse.
Todo eso se dirigió y se apretó en un momento así, compañera, mira. Lo apretaron y eso explotó.
Yeah. So it was like, despite the strategy of what's called the soft coup, which didn't work, basically what they did was Nixon, through Kissinger, who was like the general of Nixon in that case, they decided to use the strategy of basically saturating the different sectors with as much money to intervene as possible. They had control over the opposition unions who were controlled by the management and by management. Also, the infiltration of the Marines and the armed forces. I'm sorry, the Navy and the armed forces. And also they had control over the media, like El Mercurio, right? Which was also receiving money, quite a bit of money. So between the period of the 21st of May, 1973 to, let's say, the 23rd of August, 1973, there was it was a saturation, and it was everything came to a boil to such an extent that any kind of implosion or anything that happened could create an excuse to have a coup.
Entonces, en ese momento es que el enemigo hace una jugada doble, que es sacar por un lado al comandante en jefe del ejército, que era un comandante leal, como decía el Ernestito, ¿no es cierto?, el comandante Carlos Prat, general Carlos Prat, y por el otro lado, el Senado, que era contrario a Salvador Allende por una mayoría del 56%, decreta que el gobierno de Allende es anticonstitucional, está pasando a llevar la constitución, por lo cual ya tienen el golpe de Estado listo, justificado tanto a nivel teórico como legal como militar.
So what the enemy did was they created a two-pronged strategy. They were able to get rid of Carlos Prat, who was a loyal captain, who
General.
perdón,
Perdón.
Loyal general. He was a commander of the armed forces, and they got him to resign. Él se fue, ¿no?
Claro, lo obligaron a renunciar.
They forced him to resign. And then the Senate, which had a majority of the opposition, which was 56%, they declared the government of Allende to be anti-constitutional. And so that way they were able to have the justification, both the theoretical and the military justification for the coup.
Según papeles desclasificados el año 1999 por la administración Clinton, podemos decir que el día 1 de septiembre, el agente de la CIA, Augusto Pinochet Ugarte, que era agente de la CIA según los papeles desclasificados por la NSA, desde 1957, el agente de la CIA, Augusto Pinochet Ugarte, toma el control de la Junta el 1 de septiembre de 1973. Y eso aparece en un libro de Peter Kornbluth, que es el encargado del NSA.
¿Toma el control el 1 de septiembre?
Claro. Antes del golpe se hacían reuniones semanales.
And so, according to the book by Peter Kornbluth and the declassified documents of 1999 that Clinton put out, on the 1st of September, the member of the CIA, which was Pinochet, the NSA has confirmed that Pinochet was a member of the CIA. He took power over the junta through secret meetings, through secret meetings, entre estas reuniones secretas, dices tú, ¿no?
Claro.
Yeah.
Que eran, siempre fueron informadas, según vemos en los papeles desclasificados también, desde los tiempos del informe Church hasta hoy día, siempre se informó de qué se hablaba en esas reuniones al detalle, como todas las transcripciones que conocemos de la CIA a nivel mundial. Se detallaba hasta el último detalle.
So everything was very detailed in terms of what they discussed in those meetings, just like the last, all of the declassified documents when they talk very clearly. They mention every detail of what they talked about.
Entonces, ¿cuál es la trascendencia de este dato?
So what does all this mean? In other words, where does this take us?
De que por primera vez se demuestra que Pinochet no se sumó al golpe el 9 de septiembre, sino que el 1 de septiembre ya tenía el poder esperando Unitas 14, que es una operación que hasta el día de hoy se mantiene, no sé, donde la flota del Comando Sur da la vuelta por América Latina. Entonces, ya el 1 de septiembre estaban todos los objetivos planteados por Kissinger y por Nixon. El 1 de septiembre ya estaban listos. Solamente había que apretar el botón y ese apretada de botón venía con la Unitas 14.
So this basically shows that Pinochet was basically ready to do the overthrow on the 1st of September. He was waiting for the Unitas 14, which is the Southern Command Fleet, and that they were all those things that Kissinger had all those targets already defined, and Pinochet was involved in that.
Entonces, lo importante de Unitas 14 es que en los barcos, en los portaaviones, ¿no es cierto?, venía una misión específica que era una misión de streaming, y que incluso se llama así, misión de streaming, Air Streaming. Y esa misión, camuflada como un circo de acrobacias volante que iba a estar actuando en Mendoza el 9 de septiembre de 1973, ellos le dieron por primera vez en la historia la ubicación digital a los aviones que bombardearon la moneda, y de los cuales también se dice que uno de los pilotos era norteamericano, venía en esos barcos de la Operación Unitas 14.
Ya, va a ser un poco difícil para mí traducir todo eso, la
Oh,
verdad.
lo siento.
You know, can we he's talking about the fleets of Unitas 14 and things like that. Can we get back to the Steve?
It's very easy. In the ships, in all the ships of Unitas 14 was a special mission. That special mission got that name. It was Air Streaming. O sea, la misión que estaba en el bombardero, en el portaaviones gringo, se llamaba Air Streaming.
Tú estás diciendo que digitalmente ya tenían la tecnología digital para que
para dar el blanco perfecto en la moneda, porque
Okay.
el bombardeo no falló, solamente falló en la casa de Tomás Moro, y eso fue porque se fue la señal.
Okay, so he says that there was a digital intervention. In other words, the U.S. had access already to the digital technology to create the streaming technology, so they could target La Moneda much better. They had these fleets that were airplane fleets, ships with airplane. I'm sorry, my military vocabulary is really bad.
Portaaviones.
Portaaviones, sí.
Sorry. Portaaviones.
Sí. Anyways, so
this mission has a big importance, because this mission got the point, the specific point to go on. That technology was not in Chile at that time. Only the North American Army got that intelligence. We don't have nothing.
And what is the role of the AFL-CIO today in Chile? Are they still operating in Chile?
¿Cuál es el rol que tiene el AFL-CIO hoy en día en Chile? ¿Todavía operan?
No, hasta donde tenemos conocimiento, solo hay un pequeño sector que está muy desprestigiado en el movimiento sindical y que tiene contacto con AFL-CIO, pero que mayoritariamente se fue para el lado concertacionista de la nueva mayoría y desapareció con los sindicatos de la nueva mayoría. No sé qué ahora ya literalmente no sé. Son nominativos.
Actually, there's a really small sector, but who are viewed very badly among the working class and among the other unions. They're more geared towards the concertación, but they're minimal. They have minimal level of no tiene mucho efecto, entonces no
Claro.
Tiene mucha influencia.
Es solamente representativo, son las cúpulas donde les llega financiamiento externo, pero queda para ellos, no hay un...
They're just the higher up the bureaucracy of these unions, but where the money arrives, but there's really no. And
the AFL-CIO was for corporate unionism, business unionism, labor management partnership. Is that ideology? What role does it play in Chile today in the unions?
El AFL-CIO, la política del AFL-CIO era lo que es el sindicalismo corporativo o entreguista, digamos, patronal. Ese tipo de ideología, ¿qué rol juega en Chile hoy en día entre los sindicatos hoy en día en Chile?
Desgraciadamente una muy trascendente.
Very transcendental.
Tanto que controlan ¿cómo se llama? La organización de los trabajadores oprimidos es totalmente controlada y desvirtuada por estos sindicatos amarillos, ¿no es cierto? Y de los cuales podemos dar, ¿no es cierto?, la mejor muestra, que fue lo que pasó después del 18 de octubre del 2019 hasta hoy día, en el cual ese movimiento social no tuvo ningún logro.
Actually, they're a lot. They have quite a bit of power in the sense of there's the control that these yellow kind of unionism has is very strong to such an extent that the social movement of the October 2019 didn't get off the ground because of that.
So the CIA and the AFL-CIO
don't need
looks like they've been
FLCIO.
successful. Have been
Perdón.
successful in
Sorry,
trans-
Steve. He wanted to clarify. Ernesto wanted to clarify something. Perdón.
They don't need AFL-CIO in Chile anymore because Concertación with the CUT is the most yellow one that we ever had. The elections that they do now is for the delegates, not like the CUT before, one man, one vote. The corruption within the Chilean CUT is so huge that it has created a bigger split within the trade union. And Martinez, one of the former president of the CUT from Concertación, he spent 600,000 pesos in one lunch.
He was hungry.
The corruption, I mean, it's unbelievable. Yeah, and later Figueroa, that was working with Martinez, became the next president of the CUT, and still they don't manage to give accountancy how the votes work within the CUT to elect this leadership. It's
In other words,
horrendous.
they don't even tally the votes. They don't tally the votes.
They don't
O
tally.
sea, no marcan cuántos votos eran.
They still rob the raw votes, they hide votes, and they give money to the ones who are going to vote for them, because if you don't pay la cotizaciones,
The dues.
the dues to the CUT, you cannot vote. And the only one who votes is who they receive the money to vote. So it's unbelievable. You don't need AFL-CIO. They have their own.
So the coup, the military coup and the AFL-CIO were successful in overturning democratic trade unions in Chile.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
That's still a result of the U.S. military coup in Chile. That they have corrupt corporate unions now that are.
But also the labor
working class.
The labor laws were changed a lot also, right? En las leyes laborales, por ejemplo, el voto por rubro, ¿verdad? O por, ¿cómo es la cosa? La sindicalización, la negociación colectiva. The collective bargaining and there's a high percentage of, ¿cuál es el porcentaje de los trabajadores? What's the percentage of workers who do not have a regular contract, but rather are the ones that they have to be every year they have to have a new contract?
Temporary workers.
Temporales o terciarios. ¿Cuál es el porcentaje?
In ANEF, in la Asociación Nacional de Empleados Fiscales, is around 70-something%.
77.
Wow. And these are the National Association of Fiscal Employees or Public Employees Union, one of the biggest ones in the country. Is 70% of workers there don't have a regular contract and have to have their contract renewed every year, or are
honorarios, they call it.
honorario.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's why the unionists in ANEF, they last about 2 years, because when you have a good trade union list in ANEF, after 2 years, bye. And in the private sector, the crazy bullet will kill you.
And it happened with one trade
Jimenez,
Juan Pablo Jimenez, who was killed in his own factory, in the yard of his own factory, with a bullet in his head from the back.
And in the private sector, you can have as many trade unions you like in one single factory. So one union is going to be pro the bosses, who are going to be paid by them better than the others, and etc. I mean,
so that's like the atomization or the fragmentation of the labor movement by Yeah,
Yes.
instead of
No,
having one
no.
site and one union at one site, you have a whole bunch of different unions in one site. Yeah.
All the laws of unionism that we used to have before doesn't exist.
Mhm.
Everything in terms to destroy the unions,
can-
either in the state sector or in the private sector.
Can I?
And that is put with communists, socialists. They've been ever so happy to have that situation because they are very well paid by them, by the government and by the private sector and all that. Every time when some unionist, the chairman of the ANEF, was trying to get this honorarium system out, the CUT went out of the mobilization.
¿Cómo?
All ANEF, that is the one have most
Entendí, pero ¿qué pasó con la CUT?
The CUT step outside when they start to put this reivindication.
You mean they didn't vote? They would leave the meeting, se iban de la reunión. No
They
entiendo.
leave the strike because every year there is a period of negotiation with the unions.
Right.
Yeah, they will say something that is already done, which is 1 or 2, 1.5 increase in the wages.
But then they just
real wages. They are not real wages discussion in Chile, not at all. It's just a percentage that they allocate due to the And when after that, when the ANEF start to argue about having normal workers as
under contract.
The planta, under contract, then they could leave the table of negotiation permanently.
So they don't participate in those negotiations. They leave. They leave everything.
Solidarity with the ANEF. Never.
So they're working with the bosses, basically.
Right.
It's a bosses union.
Yes.
Can I mention something, Steve?
Yeah.
About some of the similarities that have been that have to do with Chile and the U.S. working class and the U.S. youth. He mentioned things about the CAE, which is the federal student loan. The level of indebtedness that the Chilean youth have for education is the same, proportionally speaking, of the trillions of dollars that the U.S. youth owe in federal student loans here in the United States. It's proportionally for the population, it's the same level of indebtedness, and the privatization has extended. Chile is the only country that has privatized water, and the resurgence of the right wing in terms of lessons. The resurgence of the right wing is getting. We're talking more than just right wing. We're talking about neo-Nazis like Felipe Cast, whose father, el papá de Felipe o era el abuelo, que era de la S.
El abuelo y el papá. Y
Yeah,
aparte de eso, ellos le pasaron un terreno a un cura pedófilo.
Right.
Ellos le dieron la casa.
¿Al Caraquín?
Al Caradima, que es un
Caradima.
cura pedófilo.
Yeah.
Claro.
And so Cast, his father and his grandfather belonged to the SS. They also passed some land to a pedophile priest. They were directly involved with the Colonia Dignidad as well. And in the southern part of Chile, the most recent thing that happened in the southern, one of the una congresista, la Gloria Nabel de la APRA, ella dijo que todas las torturas habían sido mito. ¿Ah?
Claro, es que ella es latifundista. No hay que olvidarse que para el golpe mataron a todos los campesinos, los desaparecieron. Entonces ella es parte de toda esa organización de Patria y Libertad, todo ese ultraderechismo que asesinó a los campesinos, se quedó con sus tierras y ahora están allá arriba.
Right. So during the coup, they killed most of the peasant organizations as well, most of the peasants. So these oligarchy or these members who the owners of land, this particular congresswoman named Gloria Navas, she's part of the organization called APRA, which is an association of landowners, as well as the forestry companies, as well as the las pesqueras también, ¿no? Las pesqueras, el APRA,
Pero ellos fundamentalmente están con lo que son las maderas,
with and the wood, yeah, the forestry companies, and also with the fishing industry in the south of Chile. And there also the truckers are involved in there as well. The APRA has the truckers, truck owners unions as well. And this particular congresswoman recently came out denying that the tortures had ever taken place. So there's this level of denialism that is completely accepted by, that's becoming more and more accepted by Chilean society. They're openly denying that it ever happened. They're openly, there is this it's just incredible. It's something that is.
They even propagandize the working class not to know their history.
Right.
That's why what we're doing, I mean, getting this history out to the American working class. Most of American workers have no idea that the AFL-CIO gets $45 million from the U.S. government through the National Endowment for Democracy for international operations, which amount to supporting pro-corporate unions, pro-capitalist unions around the world, and intervening in countries around the world to overthrow governments and to support coups. That's what the AFL-CIO has been involved in.
Esa es la cosa de la educación, es bien importante lo que está diciendo. Tú entendiste, ¿verdad, Poncho? ¿Entendiste lo que dijo? Que muy poca gente sabe aquí en Estados Unidos lo que está haciendo la AFL-CIO, en otros países también, pero en Chile tampoco se dio suficiente educación a la gente sobre lo que había pasado, ¿verdad?
And the rise of fascism in Chile is, I think, corresponds to what's going on in Argentina, where Javier Milei, this right-wing presidential candidate, is saying that he wants to destroy, murder the left in Argentina. He wants to exterminate the left, and also he wants the Chile solution for Argentina.
Yeah, we know.
Sí.
So is there a relationship with Chilean workers with workers in other countries for the lessons of this on the anniversary of the 50 years of the coup? Are other workers in Latin America doing anything around this issue?
What?
Que si otros trabajadores de América Latina.
Sí hay una relación entre los trabajadores chilenos y los trabajadores de otros países de América Latina en cuanto ahora de los 50 años, digamos, para contrarrestar de alguna manera este resurgimiento del fascismo. To counteract the fascism, right? Yeah.
I mean, for example, it would be very good to have a presentation for Argentinian workers about what's going on in Chile 50 years after, to have a direct connection between Argentinian workers and Chilean workers, the fight in Chile, the fight in Argentina, and the connection, because the rise of fascism is a global phenomenon. It's not just in Chile, United States, many countries around the world. Fascists are growing. In fact, Trump and the people and fascists who want to take over the United States and institute a coup.
Yes, we used to have some connections with Argentina trade unions, but now the convulsion that there is in Argentina is we're going to miss their participation like in other moments.
Okay, well, there's a left party, a left United Front in Argentina, Workers Front, United Workers Front. So maybe I'll get in touch with them and put them in touch with you so you can communicate. Because
very nice. Yes.
That would be very important. And Brazil, I mean, it seems to me the working class movement in Latin America needs to unite around this issue.
Can I also say something about, could I also say something about this solidarity? Because that's what we're going to be covering on the September 10th conference, right, in Washington, D.C. We're going to be talking about the different movements that happen around the country, right? And on August 26th, we're going to be showing a film, Ne Pasarán, which was the film of the Scottish workers who refused to construct engines for the planes for the Pinochet government. And here there's the longshoremen also were very were very powerful in refusing to load the ships and things like that. I would also like to mention that even though I was only 11 years old, at the time of the coup, and I was in New York City, my mother, who was Chilean, she was involved in solidarity work, and I was at her side and in New York City, and we were involved in trying to help liberate, we couldn't liberate them, but at least get the political detainees who had been disappeared, recognized that they had that the junta had them in their jails so that they would not stay disappeared, so that once they were recognized, that they would be recognized as political prisoners instead. So I remember very clearly working with her on that.
And Poncho, have you written up your research? Do you have a document about the role of the AFL-CIO in Chile?
¿Tú has escrito todos estos documentos? ¿Has escrito todas tus investigaciones?
No, hasta el momento solo me he dedicado a reconstruir el día 11 de septiembre, minuto a minuto, por los audios que existen de la radio. Y he juntado 8 horas.
No, está hablando del AFL-CIO, perdón, no traduje bien. No, todavía no has escrito todo lo que tú sabes.
Lo de la AFL-CIO, tengo los datos en sus fuentes primarias. Por ejemplo, aquí mismo tengo un libro sobre el asesinato de Tucapel Jiménez, que ustedes pueden ver ahí, y que, claro, después de conversar todo esto de la AFL-CIO, aquí aparece un mensaje de la AFL-CIO mandando las condolencias a la familia de Tucapel Jiménez asesinado por la dictadura. Y la AFL-CIO sale con un doble discurso aquí.
So I have compiled the information from the first sources. For example, here's a book about who killed Tucapel Jiménez, who was a leader of a union leader. Era demócrata cristiano, ¿verdad?
Él era radical, presidente de la NEF.
Era radical, ¿no era DC?
No, era radical. Era de oposición al NEF.
He was one of the presidents of ANEF, and he was a member of the Radical Party. Dijiste que era oposición?
Sí.
Allende. He was part of the opposition of Allende at the time, and when he got killed, pero él murió después del golpe, él murió.
Claro, lo asesinó la dictadura
en 83.
El 82.
82, right. The dictatorship, when he changed places, when he became in opposition to the military government in 1982, then he was killed by the dictatorship in 1982. But before then, he was part of the opposition to the Allende government.
Si me permites, compañera, ayúdame a traducir porque aquí está la carta que mandó la AFL-CIO, es cortito, es muy importante para que se vea el doble discurso que hay.
So this is a letter that the AFL-CIO sent to the family of Tucapel Jiménez as a condolences, sending their condolences for the death of, but it was like basically double speak, talking at both sides of their mouth, basically. He wanted to read something. I'm not sure if we have enough time.
We have time. You can read.
Sí, okay, perfecto. Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
Entonces dice: lamentamos profundamente el horrible asesinato de nuestro querido amigo y compañero Tucapel Jiménez.
We lament profoundly the horrible assassination of our friend Tucapel and comrade Tucapel Jiménez.
Hacemos llegar nuestra más sentido pésame a su querida familia y a los miles de compañeros sindicalistas chilenos asesinados.
Please, we're sending our condolences, profound condolences to the family and to the thousands of the assassin workers who've been killed.
Exigimos una intensa investigación de esta horrenda violación de los derechos humanos y sindicales.
We demand a very extensive investigation into these violations of human and trade union rights.
La vida y las contribuciones hechas por Tucapel Jiménez constituyen un ejemplo para todos los hombres dignos del mundo entero.
The life and the contributions of Tucapel Jiménez are an example for all men and the entire world.
Y su muerte servirá para fortalecer y renovar nuestra lucha encaminada a adquirir una vida mejor y más libre para los trabajadores.
And his death will help to bring us towards a future that will create a better life and more freedom for workers.
Solo así incrementaremos nuestra resistencia ante todas las fuerzas de la tiranía.
This is the only way we'll be able to increase our resistance against tyranny until the to the forces of tyranny.
El compañero José Campos representará a la AFL-CIO en el funeral.
Compañero José Campos will represent the AFL-CIO at the funeral.
Finalmente firma Lane Kirkland, presidente.
Lane Kirkland, president, is the one who signs the letter.
Y eso aparece en la página 85 de este libro. Ahí
And
está.
that's on page 85 of this book. ¿Quién mató a Tucapel Jiménez? Who killed
Entonces,
Tucapel Jiménez?
este discurso es una de las mejores muestras del doble discurso.
This is one of the very clear examples of their double speak.
That's good. Maybe you can get that book and bring it back.
Yeah.
Okay, you want me to
Send you a picture.
no, yo voy a tener que ir a buscar a ver si puedo encontrar esos libros allá.